When you think about sustainability, we are thinking about how we're going to continue living as people on this planet. To treat it as something that just concerns itself with things like renewable energy, water and waste management is just simply insufficient.
Sustainability is something on a higher order that arises from the interaction between different parts. And so it's not enough to change this one part and then expect your life or your city or your telephone to be sustainable. That is what our current conceptualization is a lot about. Without thinking of what is at the fundamentals of sustainability, what does it actually mean?
For me, SiD is a way to understand how things are connected. A method, a way of thinking about the world and the problems that we have. That we actually look at the cause of problems and see if we change things, how it might have unexpected results in other parts.
Sustainability is not the property of an object. A thing is not sustainable. It really depends on how it is used, how it is made, who made it, for what purpose it was made, for how long it is used, and so on. If you just focus on these, what we call object-oriented issues, you're not paying attention to what happens with social justice issues, you're not looking at the health and happiness of the people that are involved. Looking at just one particular issue is going to make you run into trouble.
I noticed that wherever I work as well, you always have to be productive, cut your cost, just efficiency all the time. But if you really want to have a glance at the system, you need time. Because you need to be flexible, and I think if you need to be productive all the time, you kind of get stuck in your kind of set concept of what the world is like.
You have to start to understand the system and map the system, know how the system functions, and you have to be able to integrate all the different disciplines that are part of your system.
A system is a combination of everything around you. So a system can be, for instance, a city, and then the objects within the system are the cars and the people and the companies and the trees and the ducks and everything that you can point at, basically.
How can you make people more aware of the fact that they're part of this bigger system, or that they're themselves are a system? You know, I'm a system as well. I mean, my body is a whole system. My mind's a system, they're interacting, and it's all interacting with this other system outside and in my house and everywhere.
If you have a system that is resilient, that is autonomous, and that is socially just, you can call it sustainable, which means that for a certain amount of time it can continue to persist and flourish and do all the great things that it was meant or that it wants to do. Symbiosis in development is a complete framework for working on integrated sustainable development. It consists of quite a few different components that allow you to work from start to finish on developing any kind of integrated sustainable solution.
Usually what happens if you start a project, you define a central goal, or maybe there's 2 or 3 goals. In working with SiD, we always set up a full set of goals that cover all sustainability issues. You will find, not just the solutions to meet one goal, but you also know how it reinforces other goals. So that will enable you to come up with a set of solutions that will actually make you outperform on all the goals. And that's what we see happening a lot in our projects.
If you would start a sustainable project in a neighborhood, you would map the entire neighborhood not only from an energy or material or ecological point of view, but also from a social, cultural, economic, psychological point of view. We went to a neighborhood that could use some improvement. There were these empty lots, and there were these women that didn't come out of their home very often. How interesting would it be if we would create these gardens where these women could work in, and then we could harvest local food. It would be very cheap, so the people in the neighborhood could actually eat there, and so it would become this kind of very circular thing. If you wouldn't have looked at it from a systems view, you would have never come up with that, because you would never have seen that there was actually this huge lever you could pull and then change the entire dynamics in a neighborhood.
How do you deal with so many goals at the same time? A phrase that we use a lot in Symbiosis in development is that everything is connected. This quality enables us to particularly make a monitoring system that covers all aspects of sustainability. And that monitoring system does not cover all the individual aspects. It also enables you to see the relationships between these aspects, and that's very valuable.
That's one of the huge advantages of SiD. It doesn't define exactly what you should be measuring, what you should be doing, but it allows you to rebuild those questions time and time again using a uniform trajectory. Rise above all the little things and look at it from a high perspective so that you have the overview. Once you have the overview, you descend and you go back into the nitty-gritty to implement the trajectory that you've seen from above.
I like that SiD has room for complexity and does not oversimplify things that you shouldn't be oversimplifying. It's flexible enough to adapt for every single context, so it can be used for buildings, for urban planning, but also for industry or development of communities, which is so important. We can no longer have one solution that fits for all.
We've done over 500 projects in this fashion. You're always nervous when you go into those SiD sessions because you are never sure what's going to come out, because you really ask an open question. But it's never failed to give us a usable, remarkable result.
I think it will help change the world, our companies, our governments and policies for the better.
It would be great if we can use this type of thinking in industry and to reduce a lot of negative footprint or the effect that we have on the world.